What's up, Rockstars? I have a really fun video for you guys today because we have a really cool look at some brand new campaigns that were just announced. We have some looks into what's at Gen Con, including stuff that maybe shouldn't be at Gen Con. There's some companies selling some product before backers get it. You know the drill. Let's discuss. Alright, the first things first, Ascending Fate did launch. I wanted to show this off real quick. This just recently launched, so 17 days ago at time of recording. And it's already funded at around 53,000, which I believe they can do because they're using Unicool system for their miniatures, so they don't have to mass produce over in China. And they're just fine doing kind of smaller shipments as needed. That being said, hopefully it does grow more than the 248 backers that are still there. I'm reading through their Freebooters Fate rulebook now, about halfway through, so I'll let you know my thoughts on that. That being said, it looks like Ascending Fate is quite different. It uses round bases instead of square, and there's a whole host of other changes and differences too. This looks very much more like a board game to me than a skirmish game per se, right? It's got a lot more tokens, it's got a lot more like game tile rooms and stuff like that, so I'll take a look at this for sure and see kind of how it's different, but it does look more of the board game style skirmish than like a tabletop skirmish, so just as an FYI on that. All right, next up we have a new announcement. Tomb Raider, the Crypt of Chronos is coming out. This is a single player, a solo game, where it says 1+ players, but I think the actual like really push on this is to be able to play solo. It's kind of the main deal here. And it says 20 to 180 minutes. I don't know the difference between that except different gameplay modes, in which case, which one's like better, I don't know. I typically don't like alternate gameplay modes, so we'll have to see. I'll let you know my thoughts on this, of course, as that we look into it and find more information out. That being said, it says coming early 2025. Now, whether that is the board game or the campaign, I've yet to find out either, so I'll try and get that information to you as well. But either way, Tomb Raider board game coming up. All right, next up, we also have Lord of the Rings, the Confrontation Ultimate Edition. This has some beautiful art, I can tell you that much right now, and it is the Ultimate Edition. There's not a whole lot of information here, really just this. If you didn't know what Confrontation is, and before you get too excited, if you're a viewer of this channel, you know the kinds of games I like to play, this isn't exactly one of them. This is kind of the main game, so obviously it's going to be a premium version of this. This doesn't mean that it's a bad game per se. It's just probably not a game that I would be totally into. That being said, it is Lord of the Rings. Does look like it might have some very pretty art involved, and it's probably a fairly premium version of it, the Ultimate Edition, as it were. So I'll let you know what this looks like once we find out more. But currently there are about 8,700 people backing it and following it. And of course, everything is linked down in the description below. Feel free to check out all of those links. All right, following that, we have CMON's latest announcement, Army of the Dead, a Zombicide game. We knew this was coming up. They'd already announced it, but here you can actually see some of the miniatures. Right, so we got like a nail bat, stuff like that. So we have some really cool like versions of the zombies from the movie and whatnot. So yeah, either way, officially licensed. If you liked the movie, then you might like this. If you didn't like the movie or you haven't seen the movie, you still might like this. The Zombicide games are often a lot of fun. Now, what this does differently, that will be what is interesting, right? It says Shambler's Alphas. Valentine, the zombie tiger is going to be in there, right? So what this looks like, how this is different from other Zombicides, I'm not sure. Let me know if you have any ideas on what might be the case for this. Should be kind of interesting. All right, otherwise, Monolith announced Mecamorphosis. They're going to be beta testing in French soon. This is not a board game, though. This is one of their TTRPGs. So this will actually be an RPG book, but it looks to me, it reminds me of like Metro Last Light kind of stuff. Which is very, very cool. It's a very nice looking art. I love the splash of red on there. Definitely looks like a cool theme, but again, not a board game. So, just FYI on that. All right, next up we have Archon, some more information on Heroes of Might and Magic Battles. This is going to be their skirmish game, and it looks to be like it's going to be something pretty legit. You see, down here they talk about how they got Jervis Johnson and Andy Chambers to be working on it, which is pretty darn cool when it comes to skirmish games, because they have a ton of history doing that. If you didn't know, these guys worked at Games Workshop for a long time making Warhammer, all versions of Necromunda, 40K, all that kind of stuff. They did a lot of game design on a lot of different editions and variations of that formula. So like Andy Chambers, I believe, did a lot of Age of Sigmar, or it may have been Jervis. Honestly, they've both been in there for so long. It's kind of impressive that they got these guys working on them. So very cool to see, of course. And they also have their own Jacek, I think his name is, who did the Battleground game, which was quite fun as well. So this is Masters of the Universe. Again, what it'll be, I'm not sure. They have the Heroes of Might and Magic, which is what this one will be. And actually, this is probably Heroes of Might and Magic. I should have clarified. But they've done other things as well, right? Like the Heroes of Might and Magic, and of course the Masters of the Universe is what they've done lately in like Hips plastic, very good plastic. So it should be pretty interesting to see what comes from this. I imagine it's going to be quite good. All right, next up we have Ozob, a cyberpunk board game. This is by Nonsense Creations. However, it's also IP and designed by Iron Studio is what the game components are developed by. Iron Studio is a Brazilian company that does these like really fancy like nerd statues and stuff. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. That Ozob, I believe, is the clown's name from one of their lines, or I think you can actually buy the miniature. This looks crazy and wild. This actually makes it look kind of interesting. In fact, there's a funny picture here. If I go to it, so you see they have these like 3D print examples, and then here they even left a 3D print support right in between the legs there, which is hilarious to me and kind of fitting for this this game so far. It looks kind of cool. So here it is at Gen Con. Actually, one of my patrons was nice enough to take this picture so I could show you guys off, or show this off to you guys. And it looks pretty cool. You got Shimra here, you got California, you got an Evangelist, you got Chernobyl, right? So like crazy theme, crazy world. One thing that's kind of interesting here is the fact that the 3D terrain on the most of the, but not all of the miniatures, at least so far, look really nice, but also I don't feel fit the board game tiles very well, right? So like this obviously doesn't fit in with that. This, you hear what I'm saying? Like he's on a roof and that's cool and all, but it doesn't fit inside of a building at all. So kind of an interesting thing. And I see this happen a lot where if it's on a board game with various tiles, it doesn't always match. And you come across that issue all sorts of times. And I'd rather have a sculpted base than none, but sometimes it can be in a little bit of contrast between what you would expect based off the tile. A lot of these look cool. You got Vision Hack and a hypnotic hologram and a support drone and an ad blocker chip and stuff like that. So very cyberpunk-like gameplay by the looks of it. And a very interesting theme as well. So I'll be looking out for this. This seems pretty neat. Finally, we have Shadow Tactics, the board game, which is actually really happening, it sounds like. In fact, mass production at Panda has been greenlit. So they are producing that. Now, again, I'd still wait until it's delivered, until it's real, because there's been companies that have manufactured part of it and talked, mass manufacturing started like 8 months ago when we made the miniatures, and now they're sitting there collecting dust in a warehouse, right? So until it gets to you, don't count it. But that being said, very cool to see that this seems to be a real thing after all of this time. I remember covering this way back in the day, and it's pretty amazing that it's still going. All right, next up we have a big issue here for a lot of people. Fear of the Unknown, which is the Wave 2 portion of the latest Cthulhu Death May Die campaign from CMON, is available to buy at Gen Con. There's been pictures of people who did buy it, and as you can see, it is that Wave 2 for the Fear of the Unknown here. And of course, there's already comments about people not being super happy about the fact that backers get it after convention goers. So, the typical joke of, oh man, I guess I should have gone to Gen Con this year so I would have gotten the thing I already paid for, kind of thing. It's also, what I think is interesting is there was no option for backers to get their version early either, right? And then you just sync up the Excel or something like that. And then have all that divert to your warehouse just like you would on the Gen Con thing. I don't know. It is kind of a bummer always to see this. I understand the desire from a business. Oh, we want to have the product available at Gen Con. We'll make tons of money. And I'm sure they will make tons of money selling it. I'm sure it's great for the people that got it. But it goes to show how backers are more often than not, especially for a company like CMON that doesn't need backers really to be second-class citizens, or essentially the people that they've already gotten the money from. So what the heck do they care, right? CMON is a business, and that business is making money, not making board games. And so as such, the board games are a means to money. And if there's a means to money, like having product shipped early to be at Gen Con, they're going to do that every single time. This shouldn't surprise anybody. It's certainly not even the first time we've seen a company do this. And it's certainly not unexpected that they won't even comment on it or make an announcement or try and appease backers with it with an early pickup or anything like that. Instead, they just do it because it's just another form of making money for them. And that's really all they really care about. Now, that doesn't mean the board game's bad. Don't get me wrong. I love CMON board games quite often. I just backed DC Superheroes United. I just actually bought a $19 core game of Marvel United, the latest version, because retail sales are awesome. So I will be getting that as well. I'm not against buying CMON games, and I think a lot of them are great. But you're kidding yourself if you think they're like super enthusiast board game people, right? They're a business that makes board games. They're not enthusiasts in that sense. So, and their decision-making process is based off of the money, not the enthusiasm of the game. Hopefully that makes sense. And I do think there's an important distinction there. But again, doesn't surprise me at all. I wish I was more upset about this. If it was another company, even perhaps, because then I would feel slightly betrayed. Hearing CMON do this doesn't even make me blink an eye, and it probably shouldn't you either. In fact, it would be kind of surprising if they didn't. And if they didn't, I would just assume they weren't able to get product early enough. Otherwise, yeah, well, why wouldn't they? It's CMON. Like they're trying to make money here, and you can't do that if you don't have stuff to sell, right? Okay. Let me know your thoughts on that below, of course, especially when it comes to the value of backing. Like, what is the value of backing to you, especially a CMON game? Is it just the exclusives? That's really the only reason they do it, right? And the only reason they have those exclusives, the only reason they lean so much into the exclusives is because why else would you buy it this way, where you give the money ahead of time and pay extra and pay shipping and wait all this time without product but with a lower bank account and all this stuff, whereas somebody can just go to Gen Con and pick it up, or the retail game at a retail place and pick it up there at your friendly local gaming store? Well, it's for the exclusives. At least that's my opinion, but let me know yours, of course, as well. Guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye, guys.